So you're a musician, you've registered with SAMRO, you've registered with CAPASSO, SAMPRA, and you've gotten your ISRC codes from RISA. And a question I often get once people have done this whole process is, what do I do next? So in this video, I'm going to be covering that. The first thing is with regard to maintenance. One thing you need to know about the organizations I have mentioned is that you have to maintain your membership. How this looks in terms of SAMRO. SAMRO, CAPASSO, and SAMPRA, all three of those entities, you need to continuously tell them about the music that you have made, who is involved in the music that you have made, when it was released, and how long, and other metadata for the songs that you're releasing. So this is typically referred to as a notification of works. So you have to notify those entities, those CMOs, about the music that you have been making. This is typical across the board for all of the PROs, all of the rest of the CMOs. So don't forget to do your notification of works. When it comes to being an active member, only CAPASSO requires you to pay every year a membership fee. SAMPRA remains free and SAMRO remains free. So all you have to do once a year, usually in January, go to CAPASSO and submit about 120 Rand per year. This value may change depending on when you watch, but you have to tell CAPASSO that you are still a member and pay your membership fee. With regards to RISA, RISA is a tricky one, not tricky, but a different one, because you don't actually have to be a RISA member to get your ISRC codes. What you can do is what I highly suggest for most people who are in their infancy and don't make a lot of money from their music, is just to get the ISRC codes, which you pay for. But once you've paid the ISRC code number you just change the numbers within there so you get a new ISRC code every time you release a new song. So that is with regards to maintenance. You just have to notify those CMOs and yearly pay CAPASSO your membership fee. The next thing that you really want to focus on is generating money. These CMOs work by when an entity or organization or someone other than yourself uses your music to make money off of that. So they may be TV, that may be radio, that may be games. If there is an entity that is using music and making money while your music is being played, generally speaking, you are owed royalties. So the job after you have maintained your membership, after you have registered and keep maintaining your membership, your job now is primarily marketing and getting your music into places where it is getting used, whether that is TV or radio or sync or gaming. There's all sorts of ways you can get other entities to make money and get royalties. So your job when it comes to being a musician is to get paying entities to give you money. Now there's a nuance. Not all entities pay great royalties, and some entities don't even pay licenses to get you those royalties. So you have to pay attention to this. The way you check this, with SAMRO, they have a list of radio stations which are licensed. Typically, the more famous an entity is, the more advertising an entity is, the more royalties roughly you should be getting. So if your music is being played on an internet radio which has no advertising and it's getting a lot of streams there, you may probably not get any royalties from SAMRO with regards to this. But if your music is being played on something like 5FM, Metro FM, Umhlobo, or Ukhozi, if your music is played in the bigger SABC type radio stations, then you are generating more money from that. So it's important that you focus on radio stations or TV platforms or whatever that are licensed, first of all, and secondly, entities that generate a lot of royalties. It's easier said than done, I'll be frank with that, and there is quite a bit of marketing and money that is required to push music into the hands of people that will use your music in a way that generates substantial royalties. But it is still effort worth doing, and most of the time what I've found, networking helps a lot to get the ball or the big rock moving, because some people generally, I've found in the radio sphere, like talking. before you actually send the email, because emails often, it's easy to send an email and everyone does it. So music compilers, for example, don't often really go through that. But if you have that personal connection, that face-to-face, go to the radio station, hi, my name is XYZ and I want to put my song ABC onto your radio DEF, for example. So it is really important that you network. Networking is not sending an email only. There is some kind of face-to-face, or if you can't even do face-to-face, pick up the phone and call. That's really how it works initially when you don't know someone. You have to meet that person before they can actually put some kind of effort into putting your music onto whatever entity or platform that they are using. Now, there are different types of ways to make music. As I mentioned before, I just focused on radio now because everyone understands radio. But if you want to get into the TV space, for example, then you want to focus on contacting music publishers, which is a total different type of way of getting royalties through. I highly recommend you look into this, because if you get into a music publishing or licensing type of entity, they focus on getting the royalties and getting your music into platforms that generate quite a bit of royalties, and that's my focus primarily as a musician. So there's various ways to get these music publishers. A lot of the time it's actually spent doing independent research on the internet, googling different type of entities that match the type of music that you make, and I've made a video of how to find these music publishers in South Africa. I'll leave it in the screen somewhere. But what you want to focus on once you've registered is maintenance, and then, which is part of notification of works, and then you want to get your music used by entities that pay substantial, ideally, royalties. The next thing you also want to do once you've done that, there have been a lot of bad publicity with regards to the CMOs. Now that you've gotten your music onto these platforms, what you want to do next is to track as much as possible. There has been a lot of bad publicity for these CMOs and the PRO in particular about royalties not making their ways to the specific musicians. So what you want to do specifically for radio, you want to use something like Radio Monitor or Warm Music, which is what I use, to track your radio plays. Because once you've gotten your royalty statement from SAMRO, you can look at your Warm Music or your Radio Monitor report and you try match things. If SAMRO is giving you less than what your radio sheet is saying, then you can show SAMRO that, hey man, I have a lot more plays than you are actually saying I have, and I need more royalties. This usually works if you have Radio Monitor and have all the details. If you do not have that, it's going to be difficult to get the money to you, especially because Warm Music and Radio Monitor don't really look back in the past more than 12 months, I think it is. So you want to be, as soon as you start a radio campaign, you're submitting to radio, you want to subscribe to something like Radio Monitor or Warm Music to track those plays. It's not so easy with Sync because we don't really have a platform that monitors really in South Africa. But if your music is being used abroad, you can look into something called TuneSat, and they monitor TV plays on international TV placements, which is something I've been using for abroad placements. But that is the gist of the 4 things you want to do when you are finally registered. You want to monitor your music. The next thing you want to do is maintain your music with the PRO, and then lastly, you really want to get your music out into the ether and being used by licensed organizations and entities so that you can earn royalties. If you found this useful, leave a comment in the description. It helps me know you're finding these videos useful. Until next time.